Hello, everybody. My name is Zara, and I'm very excited to be here today giving you this presentation. I want just to show my face to introduce myself before we start. We're going to be talking about the subconscious mind and how this can tapping into the subconscious mind, unlocking the subconscious mind can help us with recovering from or gaining function from things like long COVID, CFS, fibromyalgia. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to jump right into it. Great. So this is a new way of looking at chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID. And again, the fibromyalgia, a new old way, because we've been working with the subconscious for a very long time. But I'm going to explain how it relates to these things and how we can use some practical skills even later today that you could use to be able to actually work with your subconscious mind. A land acknowledgement. So I'm doing this presentation from Nelson, BC, which is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Sinixt, Syilx, and Kootenai people. It's a great pleasure to live here and to work on this land. So I'm very grateful for all of the amazing stewardship that took place from these people before we were even here. And I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that before proceeding. So again, my name is Zara. If you've taken my courses before, you know my story. I am a nerd for neuroscience, and I've been very passionate about neuroscience my entire life. I'm an occupational therapist, and that gives me this really unique view in healthcare. The really cool thing about OTs is that we're holistic. So OTs are both physical and mental health providers, and we get to see the full picture of somebody's story. So we really think about all the different factors that can contribute to somebody's health, be it their body, the physical things happening in their body, their psychology, their social environment, and how that impacts their function. So I love what I do, and I run my own clinic where I treat people with chronic conditions. So I see people with all kinds of chronic things under the umbrella of what we call central sensitization. So things like long COVID, CFS, fibromyalgia, post-concussion syndrome, and then all the other things like MCAS or POTS under that umbrella. I also have a personal recovery story from fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. And that's me on the left after I fell off a horse when I was a kid. I had chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia for about 10 years, give or take, if depending on how you define recovery. And I have now made a full recovery from these conditions. I have my full recovery story on my website, along with some of the recovery stories of my clients. I do believe that recovery is possible. And I do not want to say that it's possible for every single person, because I don't know all of your individual stories and other things that you have going on in your lives and various barriers that you might be facing, marginalizations you might be facing. But I do believe recovery is possible for a lot of people. And I 100% know that function, gaining function, reducing your symptoms is absolutely possible. I have so much faith in that. And there's these things that we can do to really support our systems. So we're going to talk about some of those things today. And in the courses that I do with Dr. Arsenault, we talk about more of that. And I have a lot of resources on my website to support that as well. All right, let's jump right in. So the divisions of the mind. So we have our conscious mind, and then we have our subconscious mind. I want you to ask yourself, how much of the mind do you think is subconscious? So that means below your conscious awareness. How much of your mind do you think is going on in the background, just operating things without us actually influencing it or thinking too much about it or even being aware of it? So just take a moment to think about that. So it's actually 95%. Our minds are a bit like an iceberg. Our conscious mind, or the part of our mind that is aware of our thoughts and aware of what we're doing and able to make decisions and manipulate information and think about things, is really just the tip of the iceberg. The other 95% is our subconscious. And in our early years of life, we spend a lot more time in our subconscious, which is part of the reason why it's harder to remember early childhood. But our subconscious mind stores our memories and our beliefs. So everything you've ever experienced is in your mind somewhere. It impacts our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. So the conscious mind is those conscious thoughts that we have. We know what we're thinking. We know the choices that we're going to make. I'm going to reach out and have a sip of water. That's my conscious mind deciding to do that. But our subconscious mind impacts our choices and behaviors because of deep-seated beliefs or deep-seated emotions. Our unconscious mind also governs our automatic functions and responses. So everything that happens in our autonomic nervous system, which is basically all of the automatic things happening in our body, right? We don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to think about digesting our food. We don't have to think about our heart rate, because all of that is governed by our autonomic nervous system, which sits within our subconscious mind. So our subconscious mind influences our autonomic nervous system. Our brainstem, for example, will help us with breathing and our heart rate. And our limbic system will help us with various survival responses and things that just happen in our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is also governing our habits. So our thought habits and our behavioral habits often come from this little seed that's in our subconscious mind that kind of grows up into the habit or the thought that we might be having. And our emotional responses can come from this, of course, because there's, these memories buried in there and these emotions buried in there. So it can govern our emotional responses in a big way. So there's this really cool quote by Carl Jung, which is, until you can make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So if we don't know what's going on down there and we're not getting in touch with it and we're not listening to our unconscious, then we are kind of governed by these patterns that developed when we were really young, and we're replaying these patterns again and again. So I'm going to help relate this to chronic conditions as well, but I just want you to start to think about how powerful the subconscious mind is, because it's really powerful, and it's not often we think about tapping into it and how important it is to tap in. So why is this important for long COVID and ME/CFS? How do we connect these two things? And we can say fibromyalgia as well. Well, first of all, these conditions start with an initiating factor. So all of these conditions are going to start with something that has overwhelmed your nervous system's ability to cope. In some cases, it's a virus, right? We know Epstein-Barr, we know long COVID. These viruses can trigger the nervous system in a very big way. Sometimes it's a car accident or a major accident. Sometimes it's a trauma. Sometimes it's high stress or burnout, right? But there's something that has basically overwhelmed your nervous system's ability to cope. And that sets off limbic system overactivation. So your limbic system is your subconscious mind, right? We don't have conscious control over our limbic system. It does what it wants. We can choose how we react to it, and we can influence it in different ways and start to tap into it, as I'll describe today. But ultimately, your limbic system is beyond conscious control. So this initiating factor, it dysregulates your nervous system. And then your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, right? The one that's not within our conscious control, that governs all the automatic functions in our body. When our nervous system's dysregulated, that impacts every other system in your body. So if you have a dysregulated nervous system, you're in fight or flight, you're in freeze, you're in fawn, one of the survival responses, then that's communicating to your body that you're in danger. So it communicates down to things like your mitochondria. And it says, hey, shut down for a while, we're in danger. We don't need to produce energy because we're in danger. It communicates to your respiratory system. You might have changes in your breathing. Communicates to your cardiovascular system. You might have changes in your heart rate, like POTS, for example, is a dysautonomia. It's a dysregulation of your autonomic nervous system. It might communicate to your endocrine system, changing up your hormones, because your whole body thinks that you're in threat from that initiating factor, and that just hasn't gone away yet. So your body hasn't got the all clear to say, oh, I'm safe. And all of this is happening in the subconscious, right? So if we can start to communicate to our subconscious that we are safe enough, that threat is no longer present, then we can actually start to shift the nervous system and start to shift a lot of our symptoms. So this is why it's so important that we can connect to it, because doing that helps us rewire our nervous system and our brain. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A, or we'll have an entire half an hour of question and answer at 4 p.m. Okay, so I'm sure the question on your mind then is, how do we work with the subconscious? What do we do? So the good thing to know is that our brain is plastic. Our nervous system's plastic. It's changeable. We can always change it. Doesn't matter how old you are. I always have clients being like, but I'm too old. You're not too old. Anyone over the age of 18, our nervous system's pretty set in its ways, but we can always, always, always change it. When up until 18 and sometimes till 25, our nervous system's actively growing and changing and making all these different connections. But even beyond that, until the day that we die, even if we live to be 150, our brains are still plastic. They're still changeable. So it doesn't matter how old you are, your brain is plastic. Now, how do we communicate to the subconscious? We can use words sometimes, but we have to be very careful about how we use the words. A lot of people will try to use affirmations and things like that, but we need to make them a little bit deeper, a little bit more intense with our affirmations. So I'm going to teach you how to do that today. We can also use our body language and somatics. So using soma just means body in Greek. So we're connecting to the body. Why? Because your body is what's impacted, right? Your body is of the autonomic nervous system. Your vagus nerve, which is responsible for helping you to feel more regulated, is listening to your body all the time. And it's sending information back to the brain to say, I'm safe or I'm not safe. So if we can show safety through the body, then we can actually communicate that. And that's going to send those messages to the brain. And that's going to help the nervous system to be more relaxed and regulated. We can also connect to the subconscious sometimes through journaling. So I'm going to tell you a little way to do that today, through art, through music, because these bypass the conscious mind in some ways. And then we can also connect via clinical hypnosis and theta states. So we'll talk a little bit more about these things as we move through the presentation today. So first of all, let's think about body language. So our bodies often register emotions, beliefs, and memories before the mind even processes information, right? So we're constantly taking in things from our environment, including the micro expressions of the people around us, and including our own micro expressions. And what's a micro expression? Well, for example, they've done studies where they look at people's faces, and moments before someone expresses that they don't like something, their nose will slightly wrinkle. So a little slight wrinkle of their nose, and they'll be like, I don't like that, right? So even before your brain has registered, I'm not interested in that, your body will communicate it to you, right? Or if you look at somebody carefully and they're talking to you and they're saying, oh yeah, I really like that. I really like it a lot. And their head's shaking no, but they're saying yes. We can see there's a discongruency. So one of the things that we can start to do is listen to our own micro expressions within ourselves. And if you want to like tap into a little bit of a superpower in other people too, because then you'll know what other people are thinking and be able to kind of go a little deeper with friends and family and stuff like that, which can be a cool skill to have. But right now, let's talk about how we can use it for healing. So tapping into your own micro expressions can tell you a little bit about whether your nervous system is regulated or not, right? So for example, if you're leaning in and you're tilting your head and maybe you're squinting your eyes, that's saying, I'm interested. This is good for me. This feels like aligned with what I need, right? If you're leaning back, you're crossing your arms, you're tilting your neck down, you're not showing your neck. Those are signs that you're not feeling safe. You're not feeling connected with whatever's happening. So how can we use that to our advantage? Well, if we want to communicate to the nervous system that we are safe enough, and we want to communicate to the subconscious to say, hey, I'm not in a dangerous situation, what we might do is lift your chin. You're showing your neck. You put your shoulders back, you sit up straight, you smile, right? You open your hands, you open your eyes and kind of look around the room. This is showing your body there's no threat here, right? So many of us are crumpled up. I joke with my friends that before I started to do this, I was like a croissant. I was like very folded into a C shape, like always in a very bad posture. So, you know, opening up your posture, getting yourself nice and tall is going to communicate to your body, look, I'm safe. I'm safe enough. So that's something very simple you can do to tap into your subconscious almost immediately. We can also think about our breath, tapping into our subconscious with our breath. So breathing is a key into the subconscious. Why? Because your breath is the only thing in your body that is both in your conscious control and outside of your conscious control. So if you don't think about breathing, you'll just breathe normally. But the fact that I've said breathing 5 times in the last minute, you're probably like, you're probably like thinking about it now and controlling it a little bit more, right? It's like if you think about blinking, you could start to like blink. So breathing is this really powerful thing that can shift our nervous system into more safety. So one of the things that we can do is something called the send breath. And I have examples of this on my YouTube channel too, if you need to review it. It's also in my book if you need to review it. So there's places you can find this. So send is an acronym for how we can breathe differently. The S is for slow. When we're dysregulated, we either do things way too slow, like sloth's pace, or we do things with a lot of urgency. We're, you know, running around, we're doing things, we're talking fast, we're galloping in our speech. Slow your breathing down. 4 to 6 breaths per minute. Nice and slow. You can pause at the top, you can pause at the bottom. You just want to think about slowing your breath down. The E is for exhale. Focus on your exhale. So make your exhale longer than your inhale. That's going to engage your parasympathetic nervous system. That's going to tell your body that you're safe. Breathe in through your nose. That's the N. When we breathe in through the nose, we produce more nitric oxide. We increase our immune system. And that nose breathing really helps us to regulate the nervous system, because if there was a lion in front of you or someone jumped out and scared you right now, you're most likely going to take a sharp inhale through your mouth. I don't know if this will come through because Zoom likes to cut out the like breath sounds and stuff, but it's like a, right? That is a sign of danger. Whereas if we're breathing in through our nose, that's a sign of safety. So slow your breathing down, focus on your exhale, breathe in through your nose. How you breathe out doesn't matter. And use your diaphragm. So I would say that probably 90% of my clients, when I first see them and we talk about their breath and their breathing patterns, they're not breathing with their diaphragm. They're breathing from the top of their lungs, which is a problem because we breathe 22,000 times a day. It's a lot. And when we breathe 22,000 times a day and we're not using our diaphragm as much as we could be, we're using our accessory muscles in our neck and shoulders, meaning that your neck muscles are pulling up on your lungs. And that is very exhausting for your neck muscles, for your shoulder muscles. You can get headaches, and you can also just get a lot more fatigue because that's not how your body's designed to work. So using your diaphragm can help you to regulate your breath more and to regulate your nervous system. So that's how we can change through breath. There's also this really cool study by Wim Hof. If you're familiar with him, he's also called the Iceman, and he's responsible for the sort of flurry of cold exposure stuff that's been happening all over the world lately. Everyone's obsessed with ice baths, largely because he popularized it. But he also has this breathing technique, which is 30 big, deep breaths, continuous breaths, and then a breath hold. This isn't always recommended for people with long COVID or fibromyalgia or ME/CFS because it is kind of stressful for the system. It's called hormetic stress. It's a good kind of stress if your nervous system's capable of handling stress. but for some, it might be too much. But the reason why I bring this up is because he did this very interesting study where he went to a hospital and he was injected with E. coli, a variant of E. coli. Typically, when people are injected with this, they get a high fever, and they get a really bad splitting headache, and they get a really bad reaction to this bacteria. Now, he basically used his breathing technique to tap into his autonomic nervous system to slow everything down, to, communicate to his autonomic nervous system this sense of control, this sense of safety. And he was able to have no effects from the E. coli. He said he had like a slight headache. And that might seem like some miracle thing that only one person can do because he's special or whatever. But what he did is he said, no, I can replicate this. And so he took 14 people and he trained them for 2 weeks in this breathing technique. And all 14 of those people were able to have the exact same thing happen. So the E. coli was injected into them. They use the breathing, they tap into their autonomic nervous system, and they're able to actually basically not have a reaction because they boosted their immune system so much through their autonomic nervous system. So we used to think that we can't control our autonomic nervous system, that it just does its own thing, that we don't have control over our hormones, we don't have control over our immune system. But there are little ways, little ins, right? And breathing is one of those ins. So starting with really gentle breath work with the send technique, and then building your way up to more breath work there's so many different ways that we can do breath work. This is sort of the tip of the iceberg with that. But this is just to serve the purpose to explain why breathing is so important. You can take a look at that study too if you want. If you search Wim Hof E. coli study, it should probably come up. Another really interesting thing to talk about with the nervous system is priming. So a very good way to describe this is the study that they did with karaoke. So they had these people come into this room and sing a karaoke song in front of a bunch of people, which is very nerve-wracking for a lot of people. A lot of people get social anxiety. They don't want to perform. And what they did is they put people in 3 different groups. So one group, the people were told when they went on stage right before they spoke, right before they sang the song, they said, I'm really excited to sing this song, right? The second group, they said, I'm really anxious to sing this song. So they were told to say, I'm really anxious to sing this song, and then they sang it. The third group didn't say anything at all. They just sang the song. Now, the first group that said that they were excited to sing the song, that primed themselves with that level of excitement, that group actually performed better. So subjectively, they were rated subjectively and objectively. So they rated themselves, how well did they perform? And objectively, they were rated on how well did they keep tune, how well did they, say the right lyrics and stuff like that. And the people who said that they were excited to sing the song actually performed better. So the things that we tell ourselves can actually influence our body's performance and how we perceive the world. So one of the things that I do, this is going to sound so cheesy, but this is what I do. I wake up every morning and I say, I love my life. This is going to be an amazing day. That is the first thing I say to myself every single morning. And that is a beautiful time to do it, because in the morning, first thing when you wake up, your brain is in a theta state. Your brain is a little bit more neuroplastic. So it's a really good time to say things like that, to prime your brain. There's also a really interesting study where people were reading various words, and when in the deck of words that people were reading, there was a bunch of words associated with aging. So with getting older, there was a bunch of words just associated with getting older, gray hairs, and whatever other words associated with getting older. The people who read the words associated with getting older versus people who read words associated with youthfulness, the people who read the words associated with getting older moved slower. So they got up from the study, they left the study, they moved slower. So just think about for a second, if we're constantly researching our condition, and we're constantly being told you're never going to get better, there's no cure, you're just going to keep getting worse, you're going to end up bedridden. My goodness, the amount that primes our brain to think those things even more, and not just think them, but express them in our bodies, right? So we really want to be priming ourselves with hope. We want to be priming ourselves with a belief that we can get better, that change is possible. Not this like Pollyannic thing of like, I'm amazing, I'm doing great, I'm 100% healthy. It's not like that. It's more like, every day I'm getting a little bit better. I trust my nervous system can change. I trust that I can heal from this. People do recover from this. Read recovery stories. Like do things to help yourself feel that feeling again, because there's this very fine line between excitement and fear, right? And a lot of us are dealing with so much adrenaline going through our bodies all the time. And it's how we interpret it that makes the difference, right? So going on a roller coaster, if you weren't told that it was fun and it was a roller coaster and someone just sat you on this weird machine you've never seen before, and then you go through this roller coaster experience, it's going to be the most terrifying thing in the world, right? But if someone's like, this is fun, this is exciting, we're doing this because it's fun, it changes the entire experience of it, right? So when we have this feeling in our bodies of adrenaline, we can start to read. I'm excited that I'm starting to move towards more healing, right? We're shifting our perspective a little bit here and there. So there's a lot of different ways in which priming can really impact our bodies. And we just want to think about the things that we're telling ourselves and make sure that we're telling ourselves things that are not toxically positive. That's not what we're aiming for, but things that are uplifting and positive in little chunks and little bits of what we can tell our brain. So another thing to really consider here is that what's repressed will be expressed, right? So if we repress things, if we are shoving things down, if we're not dealing with our emotions, our anger, our grief, our shame, our sadness, they're conscious now, but they end up sinking into the subconscious. When they're in the subconscious, they influence our behaviors and they influence our everything, right? So the brain is going to remain activated by these things that are unprocessed. And a lot of us have unprocessed things from our past, our recent past. Maybe COVID was incredibly stressful for you. Maybe your health journey has been devastating, right? And that's maybe not something that's been fully processed. Maybe you have burnout or work stress from before, or maybe there's even childhood trauma that hasn't been fully processed. Whatever it is, if there's emotions running amok in your subconscious nervous system, that's keeping you activated. It's keeping your nervous system going. It's kind of keeping that fuel to the fire. So we talk a lot about nervous system regulation. We talk a lot about brain retraining. We talk a lot about pacing and things like that when we're talking about how to address these conditions and how to treat them. But if I see a client and they're stuck, they're like, I do all this stuff, I regulate my nervous system all the time. I'm very mindful. I'm meditating hours a day. Sometimes that raises a little flag to me to say, it sounds like maybe there's an emotion or something that's just not quite fully processed. And maybe we need to process that. So that's kind of what we want to start doing. And one of the nice ways that we can process our emotions, there's a lot of ways to process emotions. I mean, you could do EMDR, you could do clinical hypnotherapy, which we'll talk a little bit about. But one of the really nice ways to process emotions is called therapeutic writing or journal speak. So journal speak is Nicole Sachs. Therapeutic writing is a different sort of process. Therapeutic writing has a lot of really good peer-reviewed articles about it and how it can help with a lot of different kinds of conditions. But yeah, both of these, I basically just combine the two processing techniques into one. because there's good things from both. So this is an act of a skill that we can use to process some of those unprocessed emotions. So basically, the act of writing something down creates a space between you and your thoughts. So by writing something, you become the observer of your thoughts and feelings rather than fusing with them. You're seeing what's happening as you're pouring it out. Now, therapeutic writing or journal speak is a lot different than your typical journaling session. So you're not going like, oh, this happened and so said this and this, it's not just like, an explanation of what happened. When you're doing this kind of writing, what it is you're really getting stuff out. It's a release of these things that are stored deep in your subconscious. So how you do this is, one, you would write a list of things that have been stressful or traumatic in your life. So you can think about current things, relationships, stressful situations in your life, your condition itself, job loss, all that kind of stuff. Or you can think about past stressors or traumas. And you just want to write a list of these things. Then what you're going to do, number 2, is pick one of them. I often recommend to start with like not the worst thing that's ever happened to you, because if you start with the worst thing that's ever happened to you, that can just overwhelm your system. We don't ever want to just overwhelm your system. We want to be careful with that. So choose a topic that's a little bit easier for you to digest, and then set a timer for 15 to 30 minutes and just write about it. And you're going to write like just continuously. So don't stop writing. Don't take your pen off the page. Just keep going. Just even if you don't know what to say, you go, I don't know what to write anymore. I don't even know. What do I even say? And then eventually something else will come through, right? Try to be honest, even if it's shameful or ugly. In this space, you can say things you would never even say to a therapist. I want you to get like very real and raw with this kind of writing. I don't want you to hold back, because the purpose is that we're literally purging what's inside of you, right? So if you're trying to be nice, maybe your whole life you've tried to be nice. Maybe you're kind of a fawner or people pleaser. Maybe you've never really said what you wanted to say. This is a space where you can say anything. You can say hateful things if you want. You could be as ugly as you need to be. It doesn't matter, because this isn't exactly who you are or how you feel. This is just a release. It doesn't mean this is your personality. It doesn't mean this is even what you actually think. Sometimes people write things they don't actually even believe. They just need to get it out, right? So Nicole Sachs, who is the founder of Journal Speak, she said that because she had really bad pain from ankylosing spondylitis, which is basically a condition where your spine grows spikes, which is awful. And she was able to make a full recovery using this Journal Speak technique. And well, she doesn't have any pain anymore. She still has the ankylosing spondylitis. When she first did it, she had 3 kids. And the thing that came out was that she hated being a mother, that she hated having children. And she didn't actually hate being a mother or having children. It's just that she needed to process that bigger emotion to get to what was underneath it. So it's not necessarily that you're going to say something here that's like hateful, but true. It might just be something that needs to come out. So that's what you want to do. And then after, you're going to destroy it. This is important. You're not rereading it, and it's not somewhere where someone's going to find it. Okay. So you're going to burn it if you have somewhere safe to do so, or you're going to rip it up. Or if it's written in marker, you're going to cover it in water and you're going to drain all the ink out of it and make sure it's illegible, right? You're never going to read it. No one's ever going to read it again. Now, the difference between journal speak and therapeutic writing is that in therapeutic writing, you write about the same subject 4 times. So I really like this because I feel like you process it a lot deeper. So what I recommend is separated by at least 24 hours, write about the same subject. So you would write about it, you would then wait 24 hours and you write about it again. What happens in those 24 hours is that your subconscious mind is chewing on the subject. You're processing it. So your subconscious mind is going through it. and making connections. And then the next time you go to write about it, often what happens is maybe the first time there was a lot of emotion, there was swearing, there was, this big emotional thing. The next time you go to write about it, it's a little less, and then it's a little less, and then it's even less by the fourth time. So separate by at least 24 hours and not more than a week, I would say. That is the essence of therapeutic writing. I would end it with at least 10 minutes of self-compassion, because this can be a lot. It's a big processing tool. And sometimes people are talking about some very traumatic things. So make sure that you have something afterwards that feels soothing, like a bath or, your coziest comforted blanket, or like a really nice book to listen to or to read. Make sure that you finish it with some kind of self-compassion in the end. And only do this if you feel ready. Some people are not ready to go mucking about in their trauma. Some people are not at that stage, and that's okay. You don't have to be ready right now. This can be something you put in your back pocket for later. And sometimes it might also be helpful to already have established a connection with a counselor or a really good friend or a family member who can support you through this process, so that you don't feel alone in it. Because sometimes just like pulling back the layers can open up a lot of things. When I did this the first time, I had the hives all over my body, which was wild. I don't know why my nervous system responded like that, but it did. So you want to make sure that you're ready for this kind of processing, because abreaction, it's the pus coming out of a wound. It means things are going to come up and out. So you might have a few more days of more symptoms before it goes away, and then things can start to go away, right? But you have to be prepared and ready for that. I don't think this is as intense as like EMDR can be, which can be very, very a lot for people, but it is, you just want to be ready for that. Okay, now we're going to talk about visualization and how visualization can impact our subconscious mind. So what I want you to do is close your eyes, and we're just going to do a very quick visualization. If you can't visualize, what I would invite you to do is listen like I'm telling a story, or tell yourself a story about what I'm saying. So if you can't picture what I'm saying, give yourself the words and just tell yourself a story. So if you want, you can close your eyes or you can keep them open. I want you to imagine that you're walking into your kitchen. And I want you to imagine that you're pulling a lemon out of the fridge, and just feel for a minute the weight of the lemon in your hand. And imagine that you can notice the coolness of the lemon and the waxy texture of the lemon. And then I want you to imagine putting that lemon on a cutting board and cutting it in half. And as soon as you cut it in half, you can see the juice flow out of it. You can smell the lemon more. And now what I want you to imagine is that you're reaching out, grabbing half of the lemon. You're going to bring it up to your nose, and you're going to smell it. So you can smell this nice lemon. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take a massive bite of it. Huge bite of this lemon. Great. Okay, you can open your eyes. Now, did anybody start to salivate? Can I get like a thumbs up or a heart if people started to salivate or had like a pucker? Yeah, it looks like a lot of you. Yeah, so if I told you prior to doing this exercise, if I told you salivate right now, you're not going to be able to salivate. And why is that? It's because that's an autonomic response in your body. Salivation is not something we have control over. It's subconscious, right? But how can we control salivation? By imagining something that influences your subconscious. So you just did a short exercise and you actually influenced your subconscious. Now, maybe you didn't start to salivate. That's okay if it didn't happen. It was a very short exercise, but you get the point. By thinking about something or imagining something, you don't have to be able to visualize it. The visualizing isn't that important. Just thinking about it is enough. But by just imagining, thinking about, visualizing, we shift our autonomic nervous system. If I think about something really stressful that's about to happen, if I go, oh, next week I've got this meeting and I'm so nervous and I don't know if I can do it. My heart rate's going to go up. My stomach's going to start to feel bad. I can't just make my heart rate go up by thinking about it unless I actually think about something that makes it go up, right? So by imagining or thinking about things, we can influence our autonomic nervous system, or we can influence our subconscious mind in a negative way, but we can also influence it in a positive way. So we can use visualization techniques to shift our mind. There's a really cool study where they had people weightlifting, and they had people weightlifting with their biceps. So they were lifting a weight and training their biceps for 15 minutes, 5 days a week for 3 weeks. That's one group. The second group were visualizing themselves weightlifting. So they were imagining themselves lifting the weight. The third group did a meditation. They weren't doing anything related to weights at all. So the group that did a meditation, they didn't have any increase in their muscle strength, right? Of course not. They were just doing a meditation. The group who trained their biceps had a 30% increase in their strength. The group who imagined themselves, they didn't lift a weight at all. They imagined themselves lifting a weight, had a 12.5% increase in their bicep strength. That's almost half, right? So just by imagining something, even if you're bedridden right now, imagine yourself, picture yourself walking. Picture yourself doing the things you can't do right now. You want to go bike riding again? Imagine yourself bike riding. Picture it, think about it, bring it to life in your mind as much as you can. You're actually training your body to do that thing again. So that's one of the things we can do. Imagine yourself optimized. Imagine yourself healthy, right? Or you could imagine something comforting. Imagine that you're sitting in a beautiful forest next to a waterfall. That's going to soothe and calm your nervous system, right? Imagine something energizing. Imagine that you've just gone for a nice swim and you feel really alive. Imagine that energy in your body. It will shift your nervous system. You're communicating to your subconscious. Another really powerful thing we can do is clinical hypnotherapy. So we can use the hypnosis state, which is basically just a very relaxed state. It's nothing special or it's nothing to be scared of. Hypnosis is really just a deeply, deeply relaxed state where our brain is a little bit more flexible, a little bit more plastic. Now, when we use clinical hypnosis to shift our brain, that gives us even more power. Because when we're just sitting here and we're imagining, that's one level of the mind. But with hypnosis, we're actually going into the subconscious. We're going deeper into that theta state that is the subconscious. And we can work with our mind on that level to shift our patterns, to shift our beliefs, to change things. And clinical hypnosis is not a woo-woo thing. There is so many studies. There's a researcher out of Harvard who's incredible, and he's working on this a lot. His name escapes me this very moment, but there's a lot of amazing people working on this. And I've seen really good results with my clients with hypnosis as well. So hypnosis is one of the things that you can kind of consider in your therapy journey. There's lots of ways to access it. And I'll talk about the hypnotic work that I do because I'm trained as a clinical hypnotherapist. But these are some of the ways that we can use visualization to impact the mind. So that's about hypnosis. Affirmations. So affirmations can start to influence our mind as well. What I recommend is pairing your affirmations with visualization, with a behavior change, with your emotions, because just doing affirmations to try and change our brain is not going to be enough. We need to also visualize the change or think about the change. Again, if you can't visualize, it doesn't really matter. You can think about it. And then shift your behavior, shift your body, shift your emotions, right? So some of the affirmations that can be nice for chronic conditions are on this slide here. So things like, I am not my illness, right? I am whole, I am worthy, I'm a resilient human being. My body holds wisdom, I'm learning to listen with compassion. I'm allowed to rest without guilt. Rest is a form of repair. Note that none of these affirmations are I'm 1,000% healthy and I'm the best, most amazing version of myself, because that isn't believable for the brain. Your brain needs to have an affirmation that it can believe, right? And these affirmations are gentle enough that we can believe them, right? I'm not broken, I'm becoming, right? I can create new associations. My body can learn that it's safe to move. It's safe to rest. It's safe to feel joy, right? My nervous system is learning how to feel calm, safe, and connected. These things are ways that are believable enough for your brain. And then we can really think about embedding them. So embedding these affirmations can come through hypnosis. So you can do a hypnosis that has these affirmations in them, or you can do these affirmations right when you wake up, when your brain is already in that deeper theta state, or right before bed is a good time for affirmations. Or you can use my brain retraining technique. So I made up this acronym based on, I've seen a lot of brain retraining programs, and I kind of just wanted to combine what I've learned over the last 20 years into one short technique, instead of being like, hey, we got to do this, and this. I just wanted to make it very simple. So if you want to rewire your mind, okay, if you want to believe a new thought, so you've identified your old thoughts. Your old thoughts are, I'm never getting better. This is doomed. I'm just going to keep getting worse. I don't know what to do. I'm helpless. These are those old thoughts that are bubbling up from our subconscious, and they're keeping us stuck, right? So the new thoughts could be any one of these affirmations, or your new thought could be, my nervous system is healing day by day, right? So my nervous system is learning to trust and to adapt day by day. I'm rewiring for safety. So let's just say that's the thought that you choose, that you want to use this technique. So in order to use the vibe technique, you would choose a thought that you really want to embed into your mind, that you really want to believe that thought. Because you'll notice when we challenge a thought with like CBT or something like that, cognitive behavior therapy, it doesn't always stick. And we don't always believe the thought, right? But if we want the new thought to stick, it's not just about repeating it. It's about really embedding it into our subconscious. So if the thought is, my nervous system is returning to safety, that's your new thought. First thing you're going to do, visualize or think about, like I've been saying, right? Just tell yourself a story about it if you can't picture it in your mind. Imagine yourself in a life where this new thought is true. So if I really believe that my nervous system is returning to safety, what kinds of things would I be doing? How would I interact with people in my life? What would my facial expressions be like? What would my posture be like? What is that like? Right? So you imagine, okay, if I really believe my nervous system's returning to safety, my posture is taller, my face feels bright, my eyes are bright. And you just imagine these things. You think about them. Because again, when we imagine something, it changes our autonomic nervous system, right? Then the inner voice. We repeat the new thought several times. My nervous system's returning to safety. My nervous system's returning to safety. My nervous system's returning to safety. You repeat it because you're building a new pattern in your brain. Neurons that wire together, fire together. You have this old road through a forest in your brain that is so trodden. You've trodden down that road of, I'm not safe, these symptoms are dangerous, I'm in trouble, so many times that it's like cleared out. It's easy to walk down that road. So what you're doing by repeating the new thought is you're bushwhacking a new trail. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard in the beginning. You're bushwhacking a new trail, but you are actually bringing your body and your mind toward that. And sometimes you might find that you're halfway down this old trail. You're like, oh gosh, here I am again. I'm on this old trail. All you have to do is go, old thought. That's an old thought. I'm thinking this new thought. My nervous system, I trust my nervous system is moving towards safety, right? Then, because again, it's not just about repetition, shift your behaviors. communicate safety through the body, like we talked about, right? Change your body, put your shoulders back, stand up straight, actually make those shifts, smile, do whatever you can to show through your body, open your hands, all these things we talked about earlier. How do you communicate? If someone walked by and saw you, how would that person know that in your mind you're thinking my nervous system is returning towards safety? How would you prove to that person without saying it? So show that in your body. Then with your emotions, validate whatever comes up. Whatever comes up is okay. We're allowed to feel whatever we need to feel. And is there a way we can add a bit of lightness to this process? So many of us try to force it. We try to fix it. We're trying to be very serious about it. Can we add lightness, a glimmer of joy, a moment of just turning up the knob on peacefulness or joy? Is there a way to tap into that a little bit? Is there something in your environment that would make you smile? Could you watch a funny video? You're shifting your emotions a little bit. So this whole process takes a minute or two. It's not very long. You could spend a minute on it, or you could spend 10. I have it's called the Brain Retraining Vibe Technique Meditation on my YouTube channel. If you want to follow along with it, you're more than welcome to do that. It's completely free. And it's also in my book. So speaking about that, my workbook, it's called Regulate and Rewire. It's about regulating the nervous system and rewiring the brain. This is on my website, Uplift Virtual Therapy. I'm Uplift Virtual Therapy everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I have a lot of free or very low cost content for you. Courses, books, and you can join my email list for anything coming out in the next year. My goal in the next while is to produce a course kind of similar to Gupta or DNRS. So you can be on the lookout for that coming out soon as well. And yeah, thank you all so much for this session and for being here with me and listening to me. Now we're going to have an opportunity to discuss a little bit and to answer questions. So I can take questions both from the Q&A, and also if you raise your hand, I can call your name and we can answer questions that way too. Another thing, because we talked about hypnosis, I do group hypnotherapy sessions every other week. I'm doing one right after this call, but I'll do one in 2 weeks from now again. You can find those on my Eventbrite, and they're $15. We do them every 2 weeks. You can always also email me. My email is right there. Okay, great. Let's take some questions. And I'm just going to grab some water and then we can do that. Okay, let me just see whose hand is up here. Oh, there we go. Okay. I think people can unmute and ask, but it might not be possible. We'll see. Janet? It might just be the question and answer. Oh, is it allowed to talk? Okay. Janet, are you able to unmute and ask a question?
Oh, sorry, I don't have a question.
Oh, sorry, your hand was raised.
I really enjoyed it though. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Kathy?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Thank you so much for this
You're so welcome.
whole um, uh, seminar. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really, really hard to listen to.
Mm,
I'm not sure why, but you've really touched on a lot of things that are hard.
mm,
Fibro, I've known I've had for years, and I managed to find ways to cope with it and live with it. CFS and long COVID, holy cow, it's only been
mm.
a couple of months and I'm finding it really, really hard.
Yeah.
the things that you have suggested and brought forward are exciting and really frightening.
Mm.
But I thank you for giving us all a little bit of hope. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, keep that hope going. And it's okay to have fear and hope at the same time. Both of those can exist and just allow them to both be there and yeah, be gentle with both of them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, I think I'm going to alternate between questions from people speaking and questions from the Q&A so that we can try to get to as many as we can. And if you, I really appreciate the way that both of you just asked those questions. So if we can keep questions to about that link, that would be perfect, just so that we can stay around a minute or two for asking questions so people can, yeah, get the questions in. Someone asked in the chat, will this be available to watch later? Yes, this will be posted on METV. I'm just looking through some of these questions here. So someone was saying that they went for nervous system testing and it was all normal. So we can't actually, so there's conditions of the nervous system, which we might be able to test for. But when we're talking about the autonomic nervous system dysregulation or the fight or flight type stuff, there's no like actual test for it. The only way that we can know that this is happening is if we align with all the symptoms, which if you have these conditions, we know already that there's nervous system dysregulation happening. Someone said, is it important to uncover what caused the stress or the initiating factor in order to start getting better? No, I don't think so. We don't have to be, sometimes people call it like, we don't have to go digging through our past to figure it out. We just have to deal with what's happening now. Sometimes it is helpful to process things that have happened if we can label certain things that have been overwhelming or stressful in our life or things we might have repressed. But otherwise, it's fine to just work with our nervous system in the present. Someone said, can it be more than one initiating factor? Yeah, so there can be tons of initiating factors in different people's lives. And sometimes it's just kind of like you're filling up the cup, filling up the cup, filling up the cup, and then one thing sort of just puts it all over the edge. Okay, I'm going to shift back to people who have their hands up, and then I'll go back to the chat after that. Kathleen?
Hi. Yes.
Hi.
So I am a Pilates instructor and I've used a lot of these like techniques to kind of get to where I am. And I use a lot of these techniques with my clients. I believe in like kind of picking things that are sustainable. So if I were to pick one of these things to start with, what would you suggest it be? And how long would you suggest I kind of stick with it to see if it's like shifting things in my energy levels and pain levels and belief systems about what's going on in my life?
Yeah, I think that two things are most important. One is working on our breath, which you probably already do a lot with your Pilates background.
Yes.
And two, that retraining of our thoughts so that we can respond to our symptoms differently is super important. So the breathing and the vibe technique is probably a good place to start.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Lisa?
Hi, Zara.
Hi.
It's Lisa. Okay, just took me a sec to figure out
All right.
unmute myself. Because one of the things that I've had trouble with, whenever I fall into real challenges, is remembering to do my exercises, yeah, or like schedule, say, the writing thing or a meditation or something like that. And
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on how to decide what time of day is good to allow yourself to go through intensity purging, for example, and recovery. Yeah.
Mm.
And I know
Yeah,
that's individual, but
yeah, that's a good question. I think some people prefer to like it really depends on the person. Like some people prefer to do it at night because then you don't have the rest of your day spent kind of stewing in it, but then sometimes it impacts your sleep. And then some people prefer to do it in the morning so that it doesn't impact their sleep. So I think it would depend on kind of other things that you've got going on and what would be yeah, and just kind of experimenting with what works for you. Like if you try it in the morning and that didn't feel great, you can always kind of try and shift it to night too.
right. Okay. Experiment. That's a good word.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. Alrighty, take care. Thank you. Karina?
Oh, how did you manage to get that up there for me now? But anyways, sorry, so I kind of missed a little bit of stuff, but when you were giving that example of that ice guy and you were talking about kind of connecting to the unconscious mind through that specific type of breathing, is there like
Mm.
ways to tap into the unconscious mind to kind of help it along or?
Yeah, I mean, anything we've mentioned in this class, so like the hypnosis or shifting our bodies, using our breath, all these kinds of things will tap into the unconscious, especially the visualization side of things.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, thank you.
no, that's great. Thanks so much. Ramona?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, I can, but there's quite an echo.
I hear it too. Hmm,
Maybe try typing your question in the chat.
I did, and the question was answered.
Okay, sorry, it's a bit too echoey for me to understand, but type your chat question in the chat and I'll try to get to it. Tori?
Hi there. Yeah, so just a little bit of background. I deal with bulging discs in my neck and as well as in my spine. So I deal with like a lot of nerve pain and just constant chronic pain every day. So it's a lot to deal with. And I'm just kind of wondering maybe what your thoughts on like binaural beats and like frequencies like at night, like because I believe that can kind of enter your subconscious and kind of
Mhm.
past the ego, because the ego can always get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
um yeah, just was kind of wondering what your thoughts are on that, or if you've researched into any of that.
Yeah, sorry to hear that you're dealing with that level of pain. That sounds really uncomfortable. Binaural beats, yeah, basically it's called brainwave entrainment. So when we listen to a certain frequency, it can allow our neurons to communicate in that frequency because our brain tries to match our environment. So that can be a way to get us into a theta state or a like a deeply relaxed state, which can be soothing for our nervous system. So yeah, they can be helpful for sure.
Okay, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to know because I think that would be good to for maybe other people to know, as well as like something that you can just put on in the background at night when you're sleeping, and it just kind of goes into your subconscious and helps with healing. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
awesome. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to take a look at the Q&A again here. Someone said, wouldn't women undiagnosed with ADHD beg the question that this too would cause further intense challenges? Yes. So ADHD has some similar connections to these conditions. So a lot of times in these conditions, there's more connections in the brain to the amygdala, less connections to the prefrontal cortex because of the activation of the nervous system. So that happens in ADHD as well. So there can be a lot of crossover in the symptoms for sure. But with ME/CFS, we do see that PEM as the main conditional factor. And then in fibromyalgia, there's the pain too, which might not be part of the ADHD picture. So those are the ways that we kind of differentiate the two. So someone was asking, isn't it that the virus has directly damaged the mitochondria? So typically the model that we understand and know is that the virus has put the nervous system into dysregulation, and that's communicated to the mitochondria to shift in their function. So the mitochondria aren't actually damaged per se, they're in a dysfunctional state. So it's not that there's like been an attack or something on your mitochondria. It's that the nervous system has communicated to the mitochondria to say, it's time to shut down. You need to go into a different mode. So our mitochondria have something called the cell danger response, and they are trained to go into that response. It's evolutionarily when we're under a lot of threat, so that we can conserve energy, or so that we can dissociate, or so that we can kind of faint. And that's a big part of the mitochondria's role, but they're not damaged. That's important to know. They're just not functioning in the way that they should, and they can shift their function out of that cell danger response with the all clear signal from the nervous system. So typically, no, it's not that a virus has damaged your mitochondria. It's that it set off the nervous system, and the nervous system sent a little message to the mitochondria and shut them down temporarily. Just a dysfunction. Let me just see some other things here. Someone said, what's the effect of telling yourself you love your life when you really don't? So that's the thing that I tell myself in the morning. That's how I prime my day, right? Or if, you know, I'm doing something like a presentation, I'm gonna say at the beginning, I'm very excited to do this presentation. Usually I am. Sometimes I'm a little nervous, but saying I'm excited helps me to feel differently. Me saying I love my life is different than what you might say, right? You might wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to make the best out of today, or something that feels a little bit more believable to you. Someone asked if therapeutic writing works the same if it's typed out. Yeah, you can type it out for sure, or you can do an audio message. It is better if we can see the actual words being written out. There is a connection between us and writing that helps to process things. But yeah, if you have to adapt it in whatever way you need to, then yeah, feel free to adapt it. So someone was saying, how do we bridge nurturing, hopeful language while also advocating for needed supports? So I always say that when you are advocating, you want to be as loud as you can. So yeah, the squeaky wheel kind of gets the grease in our medical system, which sucks, but that is the way it is. So, you know, you do want to highlight things and make sure that you are being explicit in what you're going through when you're talking to a medical provider, or when you're trying to help other people understand what you're going through. But on the day-to-day, in the habits and the way that we talk to ourselves, we want to start to shift the language a little bit so that we're priming ourselves for more positive experience than constantly being in the negative. Because what we have to understand is that the constant only focusing on the negative things that are present is as much of a delusion as constantly only focusing on the positive. There is a middle ground in between. It's not to say that the suffering isn't there. It's to say that we're acknowledging suffering, and we're acknowledging that there's other neutral or positive things that are also happening. So let's go back to the people with their hands up here. Lynn?
Oh, yeah. I was wondering how I can use the techniques to help with sensitivity to noise. I've started telling or explaining myself what the noise is, and telling myself I'm safe.
Yeah. So you can sort of embed those feelings of safety with the vibe technique. So for example, if I really felt safe in reaction to this noise, how would I actually react to it? What would I look like? You know, how would I hold my body? And then again, repeating that you're safe enough, that the noise isn't dangerous, and then shifting your behavior. So if I actually didn't feel a reaction to this noise, how would my body move? How would my posture be? What would my facial expression look like? And then shifting your emotions. So you kind of can use that same technique to shift that.
Great, thanks. So that should eventually work then, eh? That I won't have such a reaction to the noise, because I thought, gee, it seems like I'm almost exacerbating this reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So we just want to make sure that we're not feeding the reaction, and eventually it kind of dies out on its own if we're not constantly reacting to it in the way that we did before.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Catherine?
Yeah, I can't see my screen, so I'm not sure if it's me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, good. There's a couple of things. I think I typed something, but I'm not sure if you saw that either. So I'm really curious about the brain retraining. I hear Ray Lynn and other people talk about it all the time, but I don't know where you get it or what you can learn about it, like more in depth.
Yeah, great question. So there's a lot of opportunities for learning about brain retraining. There's different programs out there. So I think Raylan has a program. There's the DNRS program or the Gupta program. I've got a lot about brain retraining in my book, and in the course that I will be releasing soon, there's going to be a lot in there. So if you just kind of search up brain retraining on Google, a lot of these programs will pop up.
So you don't really have, oh, this is the one, or it's kind of up to the person.
Yeah, it's pretty up to the person, and there's benefits and drawbacks to each one, I think. I know that Lindsay Vine has a document on her website that goes through all the different programs and like the pros and the cons of them, and the ones that she likes the most or have been rated by her clients. So you can find that on her website, I think.
Okay, thank you. And one other thing, I have other conditions besides ME/CFS. And so that negative thing that keeps coming in my mind is, yeah, but it could be this other thing. So when you're talking about, and this is a fairly negative, I would think it's a bit of a habit. I hope it's a habit because I keep using it. Well, maybe it's not the ME/CFS. And so when you were talking about the mitochondria, and I was thinking, are you really saying that my mitochondria is fine? Are there a lot more things that are fine with me than I think are fine? How can I find out more about that?
Yeah, it's always important to make sure that we have a full medical investigation into different things that can be going on in our bodies. And then even when we do have other things happening in our bodies. So for example, I treat clients who have chronic pain and have arthritis, and we can still get the pain down very significantly, even though they have arthritis, because there's this sensitization component. So it's like we have the symptoms from whatever other kinds of conditions we're dealing with, but then also there's this like sensitization on top of it. And if we can turn that down, then we can maybe not completely eradicate our symptoms, but we can certainly have way less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks so much. Okay. Andrea?
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I did put this in the question box, but I really want to have an answer. It kind of refers to the last answer that you were given, because for somebody who's very affected by atmospheric changes, in other words, feeling like you have no control over the weather, therefore the pain, what type of techniques can be used to alleviate that kind of pain?
Really?
Oftentimes when there's the atmospheric pressure responses, it's usually in these nociplastic conditions or centrally sensitized conditions, like all the ones that we treat in this clinic. It's oftentimes a conditioned response, meaning that your nervous system has learned that this is something that it deems as dangerous. So it's responding in this way. So your nervous system detects a slight change and then it reacts in a bigger way than it needs to. So basically just reinforcing that when those symptoms come up, it's safe enough. It doesn't mean anything's actually wrong, except for this nervous system dysfunction, and using some of these tools to bring the regulation back down can support even those changes that are from the weather.
Makes sense. Thank you. And my other question is, you offer a lot of courses through Dr. Arsenault, but there's no description of what they mean, and how do we know which one to pick? Like in my case, for this particular, like which one of your courses that will teach me certain techniques is, does that make sense? Like, how do I know which one of all of your courses, all your techniques I should go for?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you're looking at them on media or on the website, but on Dr. Arsenault's website, there's a description of each course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I'm going to go back to the Q&A here. We've got 15 more minutes or so. So somebody said that they have long COVID and a lot of fear and worry about catching it again, and do a lot to not get it again. And they never really feel physically safe in the world, even with a mask. How does one work with that ongoing fear, worry, and heal? So the way that I look at this is like, we have to decide for ourselves how much risk we want to take to kind of live our lives, right? So, I mean, of course, I have this fear too. I work with people with long COVID every day. So that influences my life too. And I've had this conversation a lot of times with my clients, and I've seen it. You're definitely not alone in this fear. But we also have to ask ourselves, where is our personal level of risk versus reward for what we want to do with our lives? So for example, if you've been in a car, and I know this is reductionist, so forgive me, I'm just coming up with an analogy on the spot. If you've been in a car accident before, and you know that there's a possibility of being in a car accident again, that doesn't mean that you're never going to drive again, just because that's a possibility, right? You have to decide how much of a risk you want to take. I have a client who broke his spine on a motorcycle, and his only goal was to get back on a motorcycle, right? Like, so we have to decide for ourselves how much risk we're willing to take. And all we can do really when we're driving our car is put our seatbelt on and be a safe driver. And it's the same thing with COVID, right? You can wear masks in public spaces. You can keep your distance. You can, do whatever you need to kind of support your nervous system for those things and make sure that your immune system's working really well. But if you're really stressed about it, and if you're really like cautious and overly cautious and still going out, like it's just impacting your immune system in a negative way anyways, right? So we have to kind of find that balance of like, where's the risks that we're willing to take so that we can live our lives and lead a more rich life? And then where's the ways that we can draw that back a little bit and experience more safety and talk to our mind in a different way. And regardless of if you get COVID again, or, I've had all scenarios with my clients. I've had clients who have long COVID who get COVID again, and they feel a lot better because their immune system kicked up and actually started to change and do different things. I've had clients who got COVID again and were pretty neutral. I've had clients who got COVID again and got worse. But the clients who get COVID again and get worse, part of getting worse, and I know that, getting COVID again can disrupt the nervous system on a very physical level. But I think also part of why people get worse if they get COVID again is because they're terrified, right? You already had this thing that completely shifted, completely changed your life. You get it again, and then you're terrified. You're like, oh my gosh, this is going to make me so much worse. This is going to change my life. Everything's going to go really bad. And that in and of itself freaks your nervous system right out. And then people get even more symptoms than they might have if they just had COVID and kind of didn't, or like were neutral to it or responded in a safe way. So the way that we respond, the way that we think about it, the amount of stress in our bodies is going to influence how our bodies react to these things too. So it's a very complicated and nuanced discussion. I don't want to say there's one good answer for this question, but those are some of the like things that I think about when I'm talking through this with clients. So somebody was asking, how do we find hypnosis that could be covered by benefits? So you can look for, if you don't have occupational therapy coverage, You can look for counselors or psychologists that offer hypnotherapy. You can do it online. So you could look for like YouTube hypnotherapy sessions, or you could join the like $15 ones that I put on. That's all available to you. Someone was asking if I can speak about neuroplasticity for other health conditions such as HIV, AIDS, MS, Parkinson's, lupus, etc. Yeah, so when we're dealing with things that cause damage to the body, and not just dysfunction of the nervous system, these are two separate issues, right? So central sensitized conditions are dealing with dysfunction in your nervous system, but not damage. Whereas in MS, let's say there's damage to the myelin sheath, right? So there's a damage happening in the body. Now, any condition out there, Parkinson's, MS, AIDS, lupus, can have sensitization on top of it, right? So we can have the damage that's happened in the nervous system, but then we can have sensitization on top of it. And also, any condition out there is going to respond to how dysregulated or regulated our nervous system is. So a lot of times when I work with clients who have Parkinson's or MS, if we can lower the amount of stress and we can help to regulate the nervous system, it can slow the progression of those conditions because there's not as much activation driving the stress responses and the immune responses forward that would cause the conditions to progress quicker. So we do see in these conditions that it's supportive for the nervous system. Will it cure it completely? Probably not, but it is definitely supportive and helpful for symptoms. Let's go back to the people with their hands up. Sine?
Hi. I've been taking classes and learning about brain retraining and other techniques. But I find it hard to even implement the easiest or simplest techniques as I've been having limited energy and cognitive capacity. Like even breathing or visualization techniques are too overwhelming, exhausting. I also had hope in the past that I would get better. But I think over the years, the conditions have been getting worse. So I've lost all hope now. Like even practicing self-compassion is too overwhelming. Could you please suggest what I could do?
I'm really sorry to hear that you're in that position. It's really hard to be in a position where we feel like there's no hope. Hopefully you can borrow a little bit of my hope. I think that, I mean, I've seen people in all levels of struggle that have improved. And yeah, you might start by even just building that hope up a little bit, like maybe listening to Recovery Story, or there's a really good one you could read in my blog on my website. There's one from a woman who was bedbound and considering taking her own life. And she is now riding a bike and doing some really amazing things. So that might be a good place to start. It's just building up your hope so that there isn't a block to doing these. And then start with something as simple as 3 breaths. Like it doesn't have to be big. It can be really, really small and bite-sized and manageable. And you can always reach out to me too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Ashley? Maybe we'll come back to you. Layla?
Hi. Your presentation was super helpful and hope-giving, so thank you for that. My biggest symptom that I struggle with is dysphagia. So I'm better at with the fatigue or bladder issues or whatever else I have, trying to stay positive and telling my body that it's not dangerous and learning how to sort of retrain that a little bit. But with the dysphagia, it's really hard because it does feel a bit dangerous. So when I'm eating, I have to be really careful if I'm eating solid food and chew it a lot. And I can tell that my face is not in a relaxed state when I'm doing that. So I guess
Mm.
I'm just wondering how I would sort of tell my body that it isn't a danger in order to get rid of the symptom when the symptom like does actually cause a threat.
Hmm. That's a great question. So, yeah, that would be really uncomfortable to have to navigate that for sure. And I think that if it might not be in the moment being like, oh, this is safe, I can chew this and it's going to be fine, but probably right before eating and right after eating, doing the things that you can do to relax your nervous system so it's even less likely to happen. So it's kind of like bookending eating with those regulation techniques might help it to not happen as much, and then you can kind of build that safety over time.
Do you mean telling myself that it is like I ate successfully and it isn't a threat, or do you mean different techniques?
No, so I mean, just doing things to relax your nervous system. So yeah, it might be like deep breaths or visualizing like that you're sitting next to a really beautiful beach and just allowing your nervous system to calm, and then like kind of before and after so that you feel a little bit more calm as you're going into it and after.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, let me just take a look at the time. Someone said that they seem to be unhypnotizable. So maybe if you're letting go of control, can this be worked with? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone is unhypnotizable. I think people have blocks around control and about relaxation, not feeling safe, or about thinking that someone's going to do something to them. I think if hypnosis is explained really well and somebody's willing to go into it and wants to work on the things that they're working on, then most people can achieve that state because it's not a special state. We go into it every day. We just don't call it hypnosis. But that state that you're in right when you wake up, when you're like half asleep, half awake, that's technically a hypnotic state. So we all go into it. It's just a matter of like, do we know what this person's trying to do with us, and do we know that we're in control, and that helps us to be able to go into it more. Let's see. A couple people asked about the PowerPoint. I can send it to Bruno and then he might be able to send it out. I'm just reading through the rest of these questions here. So somebody asked in the Q&A if I've come across any recovery stories from vaccine injured patients. Yes, I have. We were just talking about this. So I meet with a board of experts for, it's called the Long COVID Echo, and it's basically experts across Canada for long COVID. And I'm on the panel of those experts. We meet once a month to discuss long COVID. And one of the sessions recently, we discussed vaccine injury, and they have a very high recovery rate. I've also seen it in my practice as well. Okay. All right, so we are basically at the end here. So I'm sorry I can't get to everybody's questions. I'm doing another session soon, and maybe we can do a Q&A session if there's enough in that session as well. So stay tuned for that session that's coming up. I'm doing a special lecture on internal family systems and how we can use that to help us with our recovery journey. And yeah, like always, you can feel free to email me or check out the resources on all the places that I mentioned. And yeah, I love being here and supporting you guys in this work. So thanks so much for having me. I hope you learned something, and I'm gonna scoot off now to lead this hypnosis session. Maybe I'll see you guys in some future ones. Alrighty, take care.